Welcome to the ODDSBREAKER'S #1 place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 70 of 2020. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at the ODDSBREAKERS. Follow us on social media / the ODDSBREAKERS. This episode is being brought to you by jazzsports.ag. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit Jazz Sports and use the promo code ODDSBREAKERS. Terms and conditions apply. If you'd like to help us out with our cost, sponsor the website and the podcast, we would love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $24.99 a month, you can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. If nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. What a week. What a weekend of college and NFL football. Lots to discuss. Really, lots and lots to discuss. From a betting standpoint, we were 9-7 last week in college football. Unfortunately, the 7 losses were, a couple of them were the larger bets, but thank goodness for that Illinois sprinkle on the money line plus 500 to upset Nebraska was huge for us. And we gave that away, I believe, on the podcast. And we talked about that as the most likely dog to win outright on Better Odds Sports Betting with Kyle Hunter that aired on Friday. So was really happy about that. Although not a great week. We're 3-4 in the NFL. We lost our teaser thanks to Minnesota, just letting Dallas hang around the whole time and score at the end. Dallas has some athletes there, and Andy Dalton decided to be good last week. So you wonder if the bye week helped him a little bit. That team probably woke up and realized that they are actually in the hunt in the NFC East, because no team has over, I think, 3 wins. I think the Eagles are 3-6-9. I think the Giants are 2 or 3 wins, and same with the Cowboys. It's the same with the Washington football team too. They're just all scattered there. But first, we want to cover a little bit of a recap in the NCAA, and it wasn't a good week for officiating. We'll get into that quick after we talk about the MAC. The MACtion was fun. A lot of fun. Lots of points are being scored in the MAC, just like the old days here. You have Kent State put up almost 70 on Akron. Akron put up 35 there. Ball State, Northern Illinois went to 56. And Northern Illinois used to be more of the under team there. Toledo, Eastern Michigan. We hit that over early in the week, and that went to 73 points. MACtion's been a lot of fun, but it looks like they're now going to start playing more Saturdays than any other day of the week. Some Fridays and some Saturdays here. The Tulane-Tulsa game Thursday night was extremely crazy. That thing was trending under at 0-0 at halftime, and then all of a sudden Tulsa comes back in the fourth quarter, scores 21 points. It's tied up. 42 is where the total's at. The total, I believe, closed at around 52.5. That thing went to overtime, and then Tulsa gets an interception and runs it all the way back for 6 points. No extra point needed because it was on, obviously, the interception score in overtime. You don't need the extra point. So it pushed a ton of bets there. There's probably a few 6.5s that some Tulane bettors wish that they had, but bad beat for Tulane bettors and really bad beat on the under there because the under was trending pretty much the whole day. Lots of cancellations last week. We probably had 4 or 5 of our plays at least canceled in the games. Unfortunately, you have some line value usually with them, but can't complain. You just got to make as many good plays as you can, and hopefully, they'll stick as long as possible. Hopefully, some of these games won't get canceled to COVID. Purdue versus Minnesota, and I got to tell you, if you watch the end of that game, I don't know why officials get a pass for this stuff. I mean, the worst I've seen is like them get suspended a week, but they fixed the end of this game. And if you watched this Purdue versus Minnesota game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Purdue scored with about a minute left a touchdown that would have put them up by 4 points. That would have made Minnesota have to drive the field to score, and the officials called a phantom pass interference on Purdue. The thing about it was that hand checking was going on the whole game, and that's the most the Purdue receiver did there, was a little hand check. But not only that, the Minnesota defender first grabbed the guy's hand and arm, making him extend it, kind of like, get off me. And, of course, that created some separation. He shouldn't have grabbed the arm in the first place. So, if anything, there should have been defensive holding or pass interference called on the Minnesota defensive back, right? It blows my mind how they just ripped the victory from Purdue there. When officials do that and there's no accountability, it's like a lack of institutional control. And if you're a Purdue fan, you still should be livid about this. I mean, there needs to be some more regulation when it comes to this stuff because there's money involved now. Legal sports betting. It's always been legal in Nevada, but there's a lot running on this stuff. For these schools, there's money running on it, even if you don't sports bet. There's got to be more integrity done here, So, looking at that, it's just a testament to all the complaints that I've been making. And I know I complain probably about the officials more than most people, but we want fairness. You don't want variance in your game that you're betting. You want it to be completely fair because that way you can predict the next game that much better. So that game pissed me off, even though I had the over and the over hit already. I was very upset for Purdue right there because they deserve to be treated better. As you all know, obviously my Wisconsin Badgers lost to Northwestern. They entered that game with their top two receivers announced on COVID protocol. I believe their top two receivers were out. And the bad thing about it is that they really didn't have any receivers this year. This was the year the Badgers were the only position that was extremely bad and no depth was receiver, and their top two went out. Well, that was a big red flag coming in. You hope that a couple other guys would step up. DK did, the freshman receiver there, but Graham Mertz had no practice really with the other guys, and he was missing them. He was turning the ball over. Northwestern was stuffing him. But what was really bad is the way it started out. Even the broadcasters were talking about it. The officials really blew some pass interference calls. It was actually, they called it on Wisconsin. People are still scratching their head why. But I'm not going to blame the loss necessarily on just that. That was a bad start to it, and it did affect the momentum of the game, the momentum. But the Badgers 5 turnovers to 0. I think it was 0 or 1 with Northwestern is the reason they couldn't come back in that game and win it. And it was also just Paul Chryst got out-coached. They needed at least an RPO game or something to make Northwestern honest. I don't know who they would have threw it to. I mean, you figured somebody off the scrap heap should be able to run maybe a 4.6 40 or something and go catch a ball. It blew my mind that they couldn't, just get something together there. But their Ferguson was he was their best receiver, he was a tight end, and he was dropping a few passes. Their backup tight end couldn't hold on to the ball. Mertz threw some interceptions. Some just bounced off other guys' hands. It was just a complete shit show on Wisconsin's side. And yes, it was terrible officiating the first half, and it shouldn't have been like that because it does affect the game. But the Wisconsin championship teams come back and they face that adversity, and then they make adjustments and they win it anyway. So the Wisconsin didn't do that, so they're not a playoff team this year. And that's what it kind of took to show me. They have to play better than that, and you have to have depth as a team. When Alabama loses their linebackers, the next guys step up. When Alabama loses their quarterback, the next guy steps up. When they lose their receivers, Jalen Waddle, next guy steps up. You have to have depth at all positions there, because if you don't, and you get exploited, then you're really not a playoff team anyway. So I was upset about it, but at the same time, hopefully the team learns from it and becomes better. It's a messed up 2020 COVID year anyway. Hopefully this is kind of a little bit of a preseason for them, and hopefully they'll get some good transfers in, or at least some good recruits for the next couple years for Wisconsin football. But congrats to Northwestern. They played very tough. The kids earned it themselves. On the field, they played very tough. I don't care about excuses. The kids played tough. The kids earned that game. So definitely good for them. Otherwise, Indiana, Ohio State. That was a great game, and Indiana played their asses off in that game, right? They almost caught Ohio State, but Ohio State was just too tough at the end. Their defense finally stepped it up. Final score is 42-35. I did take a personal play on Indiana. Just thought the 21 was where I was at, and it finally hit 21 with some public action on Ohio State. So wanted to dabble a little bit, but didn't want to send it out because I didn't have that good of a feel to be a premium play. My power ratings only had it at 18.75. So had a little fun watching it. It was just a great game for Indiana, and Ohio State does have some problems. They have some defensive problems, and they need to get better there. If they're going to beat Clemson or even a tough defensive team like Notre Dame, if they're going to stop Alabama, they need a little bit better of a defense. And I think Buckeye fans would agree with me. Hopefully for them, I do love the Big Ten, and I'd rather see them represented. If it is Ohio State, let's hope that they take that step forward. Let's move on to another awesome game, Cincinnati versus Central Florida. That game was amazing. I'll tell you this, Cincinnati bettors that laid the points were probably pretty pissed off at the end because Cincinnati got it down to the 2-yard line and pretty much just ran the clock. They almost messed it up, actually. They fumbled the ball, too, and UCF got it. But, a little scary way for Cincinnati, and they could have scored more points there than they did. They're just the dominant team. They went to UCF, and UCF played their asses off, but you can just tell that Cincinnati is the better team. Cincinnati is a borderline 2020 COVID year playoff because I'll tell you right now, Cincinnati's defense is probably better than most people in the Big Ten and most teams in the SEC. That's just the truth. BYU's kind of right under them too, but they really haven't played anybody. So it's except for Boise State, but Boise State's not that great. UCLA had a tough one with Oregon. Oregon barely pulled that one off at the end. I thought that was really interesting. I gave away Oregon as a potential playoff team, and I still think they have a really good shot. Obviously, just need to win it out, and they might take a team like Oregon to the playoffs before they would take Cincinnati or BYU, although there'd be a lot of argument over that because the Pac-12 is just not that strong again. Georgia had some trouble with Mississippi State, only won 31-24. I don't even know what to think about that because Mississippi State showed so bad after that LSU victory. I mean, you're kind of throwing them almost down with Vanderbilt. They struggled a little bit with Vanderbilt some parts of that game. And there they are only losing 7 points at Georgia. So either they completely flipped around or Mike Leach has finally got to them, or who knows? It could be a fluke. That's the problem with this team. It's really hard to bet on Mississippi State. They're kind of up and down so far. Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State was stuffed. I'll tell you, Grinch's defense over at Oklahoma has gotten much, much better. And this was a big win for Oklahoma because Oklahoma State was kind of coming in with that momentum. They were ranked over Oklahoma, and now Oklahoma's sitting there kind of coasting here. You have pretty much everybody with 2 losses in the Big 12 except Iowa State. Iowa State has a huge game coming up this week at Texas. App State, Coastal Carolina. App State should have covered that. Coastal ended up scoring 13-3 unanswered points, winning by 11 points at the very end of that game. App State, they had their chances and they kind of blew that themselves a little bit and blew the spread for people. Only scoring 6 points in the second half was kind of brutal. They're winning 17-9 after the first half of that game. We had the team total Appalachian State over 21.5 plus money, and we're really happy to hit that one. Iowa State did take care of business, took out Kansas State 45-0. We had the under 46 or 49.5. That thing closed around 46. And I got to tell you, thank God Kansas State didn't score a point, because only one touchdown in the garbage time would have screwed that total bet. So was really worried about that. Auburn, Tennessee. Pissed about that one because we had Tennessee, and Tennessee outgained Auburn, and they lose by 13 points. I mean, the spread we took was around 10.5, 11 on Tennessee. It's just kind of one of those things where you know that you're on the right side of the bet, but it didn't come that you're on the wrong side when it's all said and done, of course, because you lost the money, but you were on the right side the way you thought about this game. You know, especially when you're a team and you're outgaining the other team. Just stupid mistakes, turnovers, and things like that ruin it for Tennessee, and they couldn't even cover a double digit dog there. So that was a tough one for us. And the Army game, they were down 14-0 from their defensive fumbles and scooping scores for Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern had 1 yard of offense when they were up 14-0. Army comes back and wins it, but they don't cover the 4.5-point spread where we took Army. So that's just another one of those games that we felt we're on the right side of the bet, but obviously not on the right side of the outcome. But either way, looking at last week, 9-7, certainly had worse weeks before, so we'll take it. And on to the NFL. The biggest news that happened in the NFL was Joe Burrow getting injured. Obviously, that was huge. And I got to tell you, when you're the Bengals, right, you have no shot at making the playoffs, really. And your quarterback's just out there busting his ass. Your offensive line sucks. And you're facing a team like the the Washington football team, that the only thing that they have is a very good pass rush with Chase Young, the couple of those guys. You're really throwing your quarterback out there. And what happens? He gets hit bad, tears his ACL and his MCL, and is out at least until next season, possibly in the season. Just depends upon his healing process. I mean, that's a risk. You're a franchise guy. Your team sucks. You're out there. He's trying to win games. There's no fans in the stadiums, and you throw you're ruining your franchise quarterback like that. Man, that is just not smart. That's not smart to do as a franchise. What I've always said is that you draft the offensive line first, the trenches, offensive and defensive line. And next year, you get your quarterback, if possible. It's not a perfect situation. Maybe you have to wait an extra year. Maybe you have to draft your quarterback the same year where you get some linemen. But for God's sake, trade or something, because they didn't really make much of a move for offensive linemen there. And Burrow's been getting hit most of the year, and that franchise just does not know what to do here to build a team. I worry about that. They have receivers. They have a quarterback. They have some decent running backs that are starting to, I guess, take money. Mixon wants money. How does he not? Giovanni Bernard is worth a little bit of money. You're probably going to lose one of those guys this year, and your defense is absolutely terrible. So right now the Bengals are in a position where, they need to fix a lot more things. So, hopefully by the time they're ready to make a playoff run, T. Higgins and Boyd are not taking up all the money, because you drafted them early in wide receivers when they're really good, cost more later. You then kind of put yourself out there to not be able to develop the rest of your team and pay more people to come join you. An ideal situation is to have a 2 or 3 year receiver like a DK Metcalf, not sucking up all your money, still on rookie contracts, while you bring some defensive players over, pay them, at least pay them for a couple years here. Your quarterback's on a rookie contract. That would have been a little bit more of a better situation for the Bengals. But now, I just don't know how the team's going to move forward throughout the years. Now, of course, I'm complaining because he got hurt, but it's just what it is what it is. You have a bad offensive line out there. You have a terrible defense, so he's always throwing the ball. It's not a good recipe for a quarterback whatsoever. Thursday night football was awesome. The Seahawks beat the Cardinals 28-21. We were on big on the Seahawks. Slight buyback when the Cardinals second half, but overall that was a fun Thursday night football game. Cardinals are still really good, but they have some problems on defense for sure. And you're playing Russell Wilson. He's going to score his points. You just got to sometimes outscore him. It's hard to stop that team. It really is. And their offense is probably real close to what Kansas City's is. It's probably the second best offense in the league. Their defense is bad, but if you're not scoring almost every drive, your chances of beating the Seahawks are pretty low. A lot of money was on the Eagles this week, and I don't know. I couldn't tell why that money came in. I've seen Carson Wentz pretty bad this year, and I know they're playing the Browns, but the Browns are at home here, and the Eagles, they're not power rating wise. I have the Browns better. So I just didn't see where this Eagles money was coming in, but it definitely did keep me off betting the Browns because there's a lot of people I respect were on the Eagles, but I personally just didn't see it. Apparently, they did get that touchdown at the very end to get it closer. Saints took care of business against the Falcons, kind of flexed their defensive muscle there. We had the under that game. I was happy to cash that. So, Taysom Hill, he can score some points. He's a fast runner, 18. Well, he's a strong runner, let's just say. It's not like he's a speedster guy, but he's just a tough kid. 18 for 23 passing, 233 yards, which actually wasn't that bad there. So he had 2 touchdowns on the ground, 10 carries for 51 yards. So they have a little recipe there that's going to bug some teams. The Saints, not too much of a downgrade, I would say, from Drew Brees with Taysom Hill there. And look at the box score. I didn't see all this game, but I'm not sure how much Jameis Winston even got in. I don't even think he did. No, he didn't even have to come in this whole game. So good for him. Matt Ryan was awful and couldn't score a touchdown. Julio Jones went out earlier that game. That certainly didn't help. A little bit of injury to him. It was a bad weekend for the NFC North. The Lions getting shut out at Carolina, 20-0. That's embarrassing, right? That's embarrassing, and you wonder how long Matt Patricia can even last there. So backup quarterback and Walker beat the Lions, too, with the Panthers there. So congrats to the Panthers. And as for the Lions,
unreal.
We have the Titans versus the Ravens. Hit that over. A little bit lucky there because it took a field goal to do it. Now, obviously, we had over, I think, 48.5, and the field goal tied it at 48-48. They could have tried for a touchdown, but, always best to tie it up and go overtime. But I guess that didn't matter because the Titans drove down the field and scored early. The Ravens let them back in the game completely. And the Titans got 11 points in the fourth quarter, got the 2-point conversion, and went ahead of the Ravens there. The Ravens had to tie it up, and the Titans with Derrick Henry, 133 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. Tannehill was good, 22 for 31, 2 touchdowns, 259 yards was just enough to beat the Ravens. And the Ravens are now 6-4. I remember a lot of people giving out the Ravens over their win total because of their schedule. Well, they are actually going under their win total now because I think it was at 12.5 where I believe it closed. It might have even been closer to 13. I can't remember, but not good for the Baltimore Ravens. Not good for the Patriots either, losing to the Texans. The Texans 3-7. Now the Patriots are 4-6. The Patriots are kind of Jekyll and Hyde. They look good. Beat the Ravens. Won a couple other big games. The first game of the year, they beat the Dolphins pretty well. And, look at the Dolphins now and look at the Patriots. Who would you rather be right now, the Dolphins with Tua or the Patriots with Cam? Seriously there. I'm pretty sure I know who you'd be picking. The Jets, oh, man. Chargers up by 8. They took a safety at the very end of that game just because, run the clock out, obviously. We had the Chargers -9, and so it was closer to about 8. But right when the Chargers had it 4th and 1 at the 3-yard line, you knew that they could have got the first down if they wanted and the touchdown. They kicked the field goal up by 15. You knew exactly at that moment that they're just going to let the Jets red carpet stroll right into the end zone and completely screw your play.
Idiot.
Man, that's how I feel from betting on the Chargers. They're so damn tempting to bet on. They're at home. The Jets are a minus 1.5 yards per play. The Chargers are an even yards per play, but their record just doesn't show it. Perfect spot. You think they're going to blow them away, and Anthony Lynn becomes Anthony Lynn and doesn't really care about your spread. Well, the way they played that game was kind of like playing to lose. Something could have happened if you dog it like that and then give the other team a chance. The Jets did get the ball at the end when the Chargers were just up by a few points. So they're just not a smart team. So very hard to bet on them. I made that mistake this week. I'm not going to say never again because I'm sure I'm going to find another spot to take a shot at them, which hasn't proven to be that smart of the thing to do, especially them as a favorite. Finally, a nice one that we won, the Chiefs versus the Raiders. All you hear this week is how Andy Reid's off the bye. He's like 16-1 or something off the bye. I think it's ATS is amazing as well off the bye. And they want revenge because the Raiders drove circles around their stadium. Well, like I tweeted out, the year 2020 trumps all of that stuff, and the Raiders ended up covering that spread. And the problem with the Raiders is they couldn't get another first down before they scored that touchdown. Andy Reid called the timeout with maybe a minute 25 seconds left, and the Raiders scored after that. But it was third down. There's nothing that they can do except for give Patrick Mahomes the ball in that situation. You knew it. You knew damn well that Patrick Mahomes was going to go down and score a touchdown. You knew it. They could have got the field goal to tie it up, down 31-28, but instead they went down and just did what Patrick Mahomes does. That last touchdown throw to Kelsey, starts running the ball. He had the whole field was in front of him. He could have got a bunch of yards. So the safety jumps off of Kelsey and runs towards Mahomes, but safety not knowing, Mahomes still 3-4 yards behind the line of scrimmage because Mahomes goes way back when he steps back to pass. He goes way back there. Gives him a lot of room to think and do things, make things happen on his feet, which he is the best on his feet in the NFL. Scores that touchdown. But that only screwed up our little money line sprinkle. We were really happy to cash that, Raiders, because it felt like I was the only one in the world that to bet the Raiders in that spot. Before we move on to misleading final scores, I want to let you know I've been working on college basketball, some Big Ten prepping some of the other teams too. I'm not going to get to all the teams, 350 teams. That'd be pretty difficult to do, but I'm doing as many as I can, learning about some of these teams because college basketball is starting this week, and I can't wait because I'm getting a little bit of NFL fatigue. Really excited to get into some college basketball here. And we do well in college basketball. The Big Ten is what I specialize in. I'm going to have some Big Ten rankings for you. I'm probably going to have a preview ready by Monday of the Big Ten teams. I'll talk about the players that are gone, the players that are coming back, their ATS records, any new coaches, what my power rating is on them. Now, I don't necessarily keep up power ratings in basketball because I have efficiency equations that are quick and uses stuff from like Bart Torvik and Ken Pom. You can use those numbers and they usually come up with something accurate. But if you're just going to use Ken Pom this year, you're probably going to lose or maybe just break even because everybody else is using Ken Pom. The number what Vegas comes up with it's Ken Pom, and if there's an adjustment or a difference between the line, it must be because of an injury or something like that. If you want to beat college basketball this year, you have to beat Ken Pom and you have to beat the closing line. Those are the two things you have to do. Sometimes the opening line is a little different than Ken Pom, even though the books use it. The books will think that something's going in one direction. maybe if you use Ken Pom then, and it'll eventually come back down towards that number if there's nothing crazy like they're off a bad spot, they're on a long travel spot, they have some injuries on their team, something like that could change the number. Then that's what you want to do. You first want to beat the closing line, and you also want to beat Ken Pom because Ken Pom's going to have their idea, and that's what the whole public and the line's going to end up around at the very end. So the goal is to try to come up with ways to actually get a little bit of an edge over it. Ken Pom's going to know a lot more than you on a aggregate basis on just all the teams from the pure numbers of it. You can't keep up with it. It's entered data. It's its own function and its own algorithm. They do their own stuff. What you got to do is just dive a little bit deeper into situations, into matchup metrics. Maybe you can look at some height things, some rebounding. You can come up with your own ideas that maybe a team is just not going to out-rebound this team. Maybe this team is going to have open threes because they have bad perimeter defense. Those are the things that you need to do to beat Ken Pom. So don't even think that, you're going to gain an edge by just betting what those numbers are saying. You have to go deeper into it, and you have to ask the questions why. And so that's what we're going to focus on, just like we did towards the end of last year, to make a profit in college basketball. Can't wait to get into some college basketball, and we will once again go over our Big Ten ratings by next week. All right, time to get into a little college football. Week 12, misleading final scores. And we're going to start right out with Wisconsin. They outgained Northwestern 366 yards to 263, but lost 17-7, a 5-1 turnover ratio, an 8-1 penalty ratio killed them. Northwestern only amazingly had one penalty that whole game for 5 yards. Yeah, it was just one of those, let's just say. Tulsa outgained Tulane 522 to 302, yet went to overtime to win 30-24, a 3-1 turnover ratio. Purdue outgained Minnesota 492 to 394, yet lost 34-31, a 1-0 turnover ratio, and that terrible play at the end of the game where the officials took it from Purdue. Appalachian State outgained Coastal Carolina 415 to 369, yet lost 34-23, a 3-1 turnover ratio and 8-1 penalty ratio hurt them. Looks like Coastal actually didn't get too many calls on them either. Arkansas State outgained Texas State 654 to 506, yet lost 47-45. A 1-0 turnover ratio hurt them. Western Kentucky only outgained FIU 278 to 263, yet won 38-21. A 2-0 turnover ratio did Western Kentucky in. Cincinnati outgained UCF 482 to 359. Yet only won 36-33. Lucky cover, like I said, for UCF bettors was since he was able to run the clock out, and they could have actually scored at the end of that game to make it a 2-score difference. UCLA outgained Oregon 462 to 422, yet lost 38-35. A 4-1 turnover ratio killed them. And I want to say about Cincinnati, they did the right thing. You're not supposed to give the other team the ball back, so I want to make sure I clarified that. Iowa only outgained Penn State 361 to 342, yet won 41-21. A 4-1 turnover ratio did Penn State in, as usual. Penn State's on this list every single week, I swear. Cal outgained Oregon State 439 to 360, yet lost 31-27. A 2-2 turnover ratio didn't do anything. Bad efficiency did Cal in. Tennessee outgained Auburn 463 to 385, lost 30-17, killing my ticket. 1-1 turnover ratio, not bad. Efficiency was bad for Tennessee, and it just killed all their backers at that wonderful plus 11. Let's get into some college football Week 13 motivational spots, letdown spots. The obvious Northwestern at Michigan State after beating Wisconsin is one. Coastal Carolina at Texas State after beating Appalachian State, who owned the Sun Belt for years. Iowa hosting Nebraska after upsetting Penn State is a letdown spot. Kinda. I mean, at this point, Penn State's really bad. Oklahoma at West Virginia is a small one after beating Oklahoma State. And I guess that's a small one. Oklahoma feels like they own this team anyway, but it was still, they still beat a team that was ranked higher than them, I wanted to say. That's all we have for letdown spots, not a ton of upsets. Get up spots, Wisconsin hosting Minnesota was embarrassed last weekend. We'll see if their receivers come back. Not sure if they're eligible yet. North Carolina can make a statement against Notre Dame. That's a big get-up spot for North Carolina. Imagine that upset. Texas A&M hosting LSU needs big wins. You know, Texas A&M lost to Alabama pretty bad. It was their only loss. They would like to figure out how to get into the playoff. You know, the fact that they can't play in the SEC championship game, they're going to need some margin on their wins. Look ahead spots. Coastal Carolina could be looking past Texas State to Liberty. That's a sandwich spot. Louisiana could be looking past Louisiana Monroe to Appalachian State. That's a very possible one right there. Time for some NFL Week 11 misleading final scores and Week 12 motivational spots. New England outgained Houston 435 to 399, yet lost 27-20, and there was no turnovers in that game. So Houston was a little bit more efficient, and they also had a better yards per play. Minnesota outgained Dallas 430 to 376, yet lost 31-28, a 2-to-1 turnover ratio, and just bad defense at the end killed them. That last play, though, that fourth down play where the guy was all over the receiver, that one I'm still scratching my head all over. Motivational spots, letdown spots. Broncos could let down a bit versus the Saints after that big win versus Miami. They seemed a little too happy about that win. There was an upset there. Get up spots. Minnesota has to beat Carolina to remain relevant in the playoff hunt. It's a get up spot. Chicago's in a must win versus Green Bay, but I just don't see how the hell they're going to do it with both quarterbacks all banged up. Ravens at Pittsburgh's huge for the Ravens. They need this one bad. Big get up spot there. Patriots need some life after that loss versus the Cardinals this week. I expect the Patriots should be able to run the ball. Jets looking for their first win versus Miami. This is the time where teams like the Jets are desperate. Trust me, those players aren't thinking about Trevor Lawrence either. The GM might be. The coach ain't. He's gone. Adam Gase, he gone. He's not thinking about Trevor Lawrence. They're trying to win a game. Look ahead spots. Broncos looking past the Saints to the Chiefs is a possible sandwich spot for the Broncos. Time for our college football free play of this podcast. And we're going to get ugly here, okay? Ugly. We're going to go to the MAC. And you know when you go to the MAC, it's ugly. What don't we do in the MAC? We don't bet unders in the MAC. That's right. We're going Miami, Ohio against Akron over 53.5, 54, wherever you're seeing it. I see both right now. I mean, Miami, Ohio, they're not as good as they were. They lost to Buffalo, only scoring 10 points at Buffalo, but that's Buffalo, okay? They did score 38 points against Ball State. I'm not sure which quarterback they're going to be on yet, okay? Because I know that their quarterback, Gabbert, their starting quarterback, got hurt the first game, but he's questionable. But A.J. Meyer has been okay. 4-to-1 TD to interception ratio. He's only 47% completion percentage, but give the kid a break. I mean, he played at Buffalo. They're the best team in the MAC. I'm not that worried about them scoring against Akron. Akron's defense is giving up 8.28 yards per play, and they haven't faced a Power 5 school. They only faced all MAC teams, Western Michigan, which has improved, but still, at Ohio. Kent State scored 69 on them last week. You're telling me the total is 53.5 points, and these teams are averaging 50 points against them? On the good side of things, Akron is putting up 19.3 points per game. They scored 35 at Kent State, 13 against Western Michigan, only 10 against Ohio. But Miami, Ohio's defense isn't as good as it was. They're allowing 36.5 points per game. Now, I expect both teams to have a decent pace this game. They're going to both try to put up points because they know their defense isn't that good whatsoever. I really like the over here. 53.5, 54, wherever you can get it. I literally like this over up to 58 points, maybe 60. The only worry you would have is Akron not scoring. But against Miami, Ohio's defense, I really think they are going to score. Akron is a very desperate team. We're going to take this play for 2.5 star premium shared play.
My first Asian.
No, she says
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
please.
All right, now it's time for a little fantasy football. Week 12 with our guy, D Nasty. All right, now it's time for a little fantasy football. Week 12, we have our guy, D Nasty, back to break down what's been happening in fantasy land. Dave, how you doing, buddy?
Good. I'm ready to eat some turkey and watch some football on Thanksgiving here.
Well, great, man. Hopefully some of our waiver wires that we go over don't end up to be turkeys this week. And some of our busts, we're going to have to change the name to our Week 12 turkeys, aren't we, Dave?
Exactly. A little turkey theme for this week.
Yeah, Thanksgiving. And, hey, I love Thanksgiving, man. You know, it's just such a perfect holiday. Nobody's working. You don't have to worry about any, religious shit you have to deal with or too much, not too much travel. It's not like you're going too far. You have football. You can relax. You can absolutely enjoy yourself. So, love Thanksgiving as a holiday, man. You have the best food. You don't have to feel guilty about nothing. You can have some drinks. It's just a all around good day, man. And I'm excited for it. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm pumped, man. I love watching football and eating turkey on Thanksgiving, so I live for it, man. What's better than eating food and watching football all day?
That's true. That's true. And we have 3 awesome games, too, on Thursday. So maybe some of these players that we mentioned will be playing for you and your fantasy team on Thursday. But it's good that you brought that up because make sure you get your starters in by Thursday early morning. I would start them Wednesday night, right, Dave?
Exactly. And there's not really 3 great games this week. I'd say 1 great game this week, possibly. The other 2 games, who cares, essentially. But you might have some players in those games which would be more fun to watch, though, as well.
Yeah, you might have Deshaun Watson playing, at least. It's not like a great game against, the Lions, So, Cowboys they did better last week, at least. Zeke actually finally showed up for me. Finally. I couldn't believe it. And what's really bittersweet is A.J. Green scored last week, his first touchdown, just to hear the worst injury of the week, Dave. And there are no bye weeks because all the byes were moved due to COVID earlier in the year. For some reason, week 12, there's no byes, is there, Dave?
No byes this week. And A.J. Green, that was his first touchdown in 3 years.
Oh my God, it's 3 years. Holy cow. That's not good. I don't know what's going on with him, but I don't expect Finley to be throwing too many more touchdowns to him either. So if you have him, please try to trade him.
Or drop him.
Or drop him. I don't know. Maybe you can get some sucker to bite for him. Maybe you'll get a backup running back maybe or something. Maybe you'll get something like a Kerryon Johnson or something. I don't know. I don't know what you're going to get that's probably worth keeping for him, but maybe there's some suckers out there. Heck, you can try to maybe you didn't see the news, you can get Gus Edwards out of somebody. That would be pretty interesting. But there is some news on the key injuries, so why don't you go over that?
Sounds good. First major injury, which I hate to see. I like Joe Burrow a lot. Joe Burrow out for the year. Torn ACL and MCL, and they said he might have some other damage as well. So he's probably not going to be back next year, they're even saying. He might even have to sit out all next year. So any dynasty leagues, you can keep him, but you're not going to be able to use him the rest of this year or possibly next year as well. Very sad to see that. It's a very, very major injury for a guy who was having a great year. So sorry to see that for Joe Burrow, definitely. LaMichael Perrine, rookie for the Jets, he injured his knee. He didn't come back into the game. Randall Cobb and Kenny Stills both exited against the Patriots. We also have Josh Allen, the defensive end, was ruled out against the Steelers. And then we have 3 major injuries, but they're not injuries, COVID-related, actually. J.K. Dobbins is going to be out for this Thursday's game, along with Mark Ingram. Both Baltimore running backs are going to be out this week due to COVID-related issues. And then Adam Thielen, major blow to a lot of fantasy owners. He's going to be out this week as well with the COVID issues as well. They were all placed on the COVID list, so none of them will be playing this week. So that's a major blow to most fantasy owners' teams. Rex Burkhead is going to be out for the rest of the year as well, so we'll be talking about pickups to replace him here shortly.
Well, there you go. It's weird that you have 2 players like Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins, right, on the Ravens there. And I'll tell you this, Gus Edwards is a really good backup, though. I think he's just as good as those guys. You know, I see him play. He plays very tough, so I'm not super worried about them. There might be another guy I'm going to mention on the waivers. And you said Randall Cobb, the toe injury?
Yes.
Yeah, and obviously, did they confirm Rex Burkhead was a torn ACL?
They just said today that he's out for the rest of the year. So they said Sony Michel and James White will be getting a lot of carries here going forward.
Okay, Michel must be back then finally.
Yep, they activated him last week.
Okay, good. So he kind of snuck under the radar. I didn't even really notice him. I don't have him in any of my teams though, so maybe that's why. But it's hard to trust Patriot running backs as is, definitely. Right, Dave?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you know, this is a big week. It's week 12. You have your fantasy team. Some people are on the brink of making or missing the playoffs, so the waiver wire might be somewhat important this week. And I'll start out with Ryan Finley. He's now going to start for Joe Burrow, I believe. And I wouldn't expect a ton out of him. I mean, if you're in a deep league, 14-team, 16-team, 2-quarterback, Ryan Finley's probably worth picking up. Otherwise, there might be some other guys that are just as good out there that might throw up a few numbers. I see Tua out there in a few leagues. I see Kirk Cousins out in a few leagues too, and he's actually having a couple good weeks here. So I'd pick up them before Ryan Finley, I'll tell you that. Russell Gage, and Julio Jones is hurt, but how bad is he, Dave?
His hamstring's been nagging him all year though, so I wouldn't put much stock in him playing this week actually. So I would definitely be looking at Russell Gage if possible.
Yeah, I feel like Atlanta's out anyway, you know, so
yeah.
They'll probably rest him a little bit. Demir Bird, another Patriots flunky that got a ton of targets last week, is a potential waiver wire for you. Also, N'Keal Harry. He got some 8 targets, I believe, for the Patriots. He's finally healthy, so I expect him to get more involved in the offense as time goes on. I think N'Keal Harry more than Demir Bird, but who knows with Belichick there. Brashard Perryman, I think you've had him before on your waivers, Dave, but I'm putting him because I haven't yet, but he just seems to be Flacco's favorite target with the Jets, and they're desperate for a W. So Perriman's been catching some touchdowns the last few weeks too.
Yeah, exactly. He's been playing well.
Yep. Gus Edwards is the number 1 pickup, I would say, if he's not owned already. He's owned in some leagues, but he's available in a lot of them, probably 50%. So Gus Edwards is going to get the bulk of the carries this week. And I'm going to talk about a man, Dave, that drafting him was an injustice to your dynasty team, to my dynasty team, but his name is Justice Hill for the Ravens. And I don't even know why I've held him on my taxi squad this long, but I think this is the first week I can finally activate him just to see if there's any life in this man. I mean, he came from Oklahoma State, and I thought he was really good coming into the NFL. He was a first-round draft pick in a lot of leagues. Lots of leagues, lots of rookie dynasty leagues. And I happen to be that sucker that picked him up a couple years back. And and he just hasn't been good, but he's been hanging around, so this is his week now, unless he gets COVID as well. So hopefully he wasn't partying with with Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins, because that would just be the icing on the cake for that guy. Denzel Mims is the other one I wrote down. He got 8 targets too. He's kind of trending up for the Jets. What are your waivers, Dave?
All right, one guy I really do like, who stuck it to all the doters and haters out there, Taysom Hill. Got him in one of my dynasty leagues. I've been hanging on to him for a while, like you were with Justice Hill. Finally put up numbers for me. He looked good. In that Saints offense, I think he could do really well. He had 2 rushing touchdowns this past week, 230 yards. He could be a nice guy to pick up if he's out there. Definitely grab him right away. He's a top pickup this week along with Gus Edwards.
I agree. He had a ton of passing yards too. I mean, for him, right?
233 yards. He had a good day.
Yeah, I think so too. He's a must own. I mean, I think with his wildcat and his running and everything, until he gets injured, which probably will happen the way they play him, but he's going to be a beast for you.
Actually, they ran him a lot less. They still ran him quite a bit, but not as much as they normally would have. Not like a Lamar Jackson or anything like that. He just had some nice runs, though, that you could tell he's just big and athletic. So I like him going forward a lot. He's my top player to pick up this week, my favorite target this week. Another one is Michael Pittman. He had a great week this past week against unfortunately the Packers. Second half, they didn't really give him the ball as much, but he went off in the first half for 66 yards and a touchdown. So if he's out there in leagues, he's only owned about 45% of leagues right now. He's been going up every week. Definitely pick him up. He's a big guy. I think he's taken over the number 1 position. He played a majority of the snaps at receiver. He played the most snaps at receiver for the Colts as well. He's definitely taken over a Hilton's spot as well. So definitely pick him up if you need a wide receiver. James White with Burkhead likely out for the season. I like him and Sony Michel, but I like James White a little bit better if you're in a PPR league. Definitely look at picking him up. Old man Frank Gore with Michael Perino. That's going to give him even more carries now. They're fighting for a win. Frank Gore said he doesn't want to go out like this on an 0-16 team. So if you need a running back, Frank Gore is a nice fill-in this week with Perino out with the knee injury. And then some other guys I do like this week as well. Be one moment here. Derek Carr, who's actually been playing very well. He had 3 touchdowns this past week. Another guy you want to take a look at if you need a quarterback this week. He's only owned in 35% of leagues right now. Wayne Gellman, a lot of people probably forgot about him. He's owned about 54% of leagues, so he's kind of borderline, but definitely a guy you want to take a look at. Giants are coming off their bye, so definitely a guy you want to take a look at. Another guy I see owned in quite a few of my leagues, actually, Curtis Samuels. He's been having himself some games this last 3 weeks. 3 of the last 4 weeks, I think he scored, and they're really going to him a lot now as well. So Curtis Samuels is definitely a guy I would like to pick up on waivers. If you're out there, definitely pick him up as well.
I like it, man. I like it. And, Wayne Gallman, I assumed he was going to be owned, so I didn't mention him, but it might be in my next section here. So why don't you go ahead with your trending up, Dave?
Sounds good. One of the people trending up right now, who I do like, Duke Johnson against the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions just looked horrible against the Panthers this past week. I do like Duke Johnson. He's starting now for David Johnson. I think he could have a good week against the Lions. I do like the Cowboys this week against the Washington Redskins. I like Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton looked good this past week along with Zeke. And then those receivers, he with Lamb and Cooper out there, I think Dalton can have a good game, especially on Thanksgiving. The Cowboys always seem to play well on Thanksgiving whenever we watch. So I like Dalton this week. A guy you'd normally not start, but I do like him this week. I like the Dolphins against the Jets. Pretty much Tua. I think he could have a great game against the Jets. Whoever plays the Jets usually has a great game. So I do like Salvan Ahmad, the running back for them too against the Jets. So I'm starting the Dolphins, any Dolphins player against the Jets, and Devontae Parker too. He struggled lately, but he had a good game this past week. So I like for him to have an even a better game against the Jets. And then I do like the Panthers this week. I do like a couple of the Panthers against the poor Vikings pass defense. The Vikings can run the ball, but they do give up quite a bit with their young secondary. So I do like Curtis Samuels, who I just talked about. I think he could have a great week this week, along with Robbie Anderson, who's having a great year as well. 2 guys I'm definitely starting this week against the poor Vikings defense. The Browns, I actually like Rashard Higgins and Baker Mayfield this week against the Jaguars. You may be starting Mayfield already, but he struggled, but I think this is what's going to ail his needs, is playing the Jaguars this week. So I do like Mayfield, and I do like Rashard Higgins. He seems to be taking over Jarvis Landry's catches in playing time. So he looks like he might be going forward. trying to take over that number one spot. He hasn't yet, but he's getting more targets as the year goes on. The Giants, with Joe Burrow out, the Bengals are just going to be a mess. I'm not starting anyone on the Bengals. So the Giants, actually, I do like against the Bengals. I do like Daniel Jones and Sterling Shepard, and then Evan Ingram, I think, could have a good week against the Bengals as well. Mm-hmm. Raiders, if you're not started, they have a lot of guys who are starting already, but Derek Carr, I do like him against the poor Falcons defense. Another guy I would be like to start this week as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I like a lot of those. I had some of those written down. Now, Jarvis Landry, he's still getting targets over there, right?
But he didn't really have many catches this week, or he didn't really put up any stats this week.
It was really windy. It was really windy too. But yeah, it could be partial. Rashard Higgins was a big guy for them a couple years back, and he was on my waiver wire a couple weeks ago too. So I like him, and great matchup against Jaguars for sure.
Exactly.
Josh Allen, their edge rusher, just got hurt pretty bad too, so he's out for a long time. So protection there for Baker. He's gonna have a big week. I agree with a ton of those. Wayne Gallman for sure against the Bengals run D. He's the bell cow over there for the Giants. Duke Johnson versus the Lions I had written down for sure. I had Antonio Gibson for Washington against Dallas's run D. They should have just kept sticking with Delvin Cook last week. He was killing it.
Oh, he was.
Yeah. Adrian Peterson had a bad game last week, but he should bounce back versus Houston's run D, and I think DeAndre Swift should still be out. Watch that injury. And Tua Tagovailoa versus the Jets. He's still going to be the starter, they say, and it's the Jets. And he's probably waiting to bounce back because he had a really bad game last game. Derek Carr, man, he's been putting up a ton of points. I have him on one of my benches, and I think it's because I have Russell Wilson or somebody like that. But I might have to start Derek Carr one of these weeks. I mean, this is
the week, man. This is the week. The Falcons. You can't get any better than this.
Yeah, it's the Falcons, but it's at the Falcons. But yeah, it's still a really good week. And this one's is going to be a little controversial, Dave. But I have Carson Wentz down, and it's because Seattle's got such a bad pass D. It'd be tough to start him, but I have to mention him in case he has a good game. Like maybe you have. There are no buys this week, so hey, maybe you lost Joe Burrow, and you don't want to pick up Finley. Maybe Carson Wentz is sitting out there for you just as a flyer because Seattle's defense is so bad. Obviously, if Carr's out there or somebody, or even Baker, take them first. But it's just something to look at because Seattle's pass D is so bad.
Not a bad idea, man. I like that one. I was actually thinking of Carson Wentz as well against the poor Seattle D. I just couldn't pull the trigger on that one. Wentz has just looked horrible this whole entire year, so yeah. I couldn't do it. But yeah, I like it though still.
All right, cool. Let's move into our turkeys, Dave. Our turkeys for week 12, my man. I got 4 of them. And I'm going to save the biggest turkey for last. I have Melvin Gordon as the first one versus the Saints run D. The Saints run D has just been absolutely lights out. Demario Davis is just stuffing people over there. So Melvin Gordon is a bust this week. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I hate to say it, but he's facing the Bucs run D, and that's not the way to beat the Bucs. You have to beat the Bucs through the air. If you've been watching today's Monday Night Football game, you see that. I hate to say it, but Derrick Henry, he didn't have that great of a game against the Colts last week, and now he's got to play the Colts again this week, or 2 weeks ago. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then now he's got to play the Colts again. It's hard to, like we've mentioned before, bench Derrick Henry, but I'm just putting him into my turkey list because he has a very good chance to bust this week. And my biggest turkey of the week, Dave, is Miles Sanders against the Seahawks run D. There's absolutely no way they're going to be able to go on the ground. Carson Wentz is going to have to throw the ball because Russell Wilson's getting his points. I'd be benching Miles Sanders if I was anybody else, Dave. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I don't like Miles Sanders this week against the Seahawks, but I think he's still going to get some passes that he'll catch and stuff. He'll still have a decent fantasy week, but he's definitely not going to have a week like he normally has. So I definitely downgrade him a little bit. He's still someone I'd still start though, definitely. Justin Herbert, I'm downgrading as well against the tough Buffalo D at home. They're playing at home. coming off a bye. I think the Bills are going to play well. Justin Herbert, I'm definitely benching him this week or downgrading him this week. Another guy I'm downgrading this week is going to be Gus Edwards, the guy we just talked about. Against a tough Steelers D. Even Lamar Jackson, he's struggled the last couple weeks as well. Against that tough Steelers defense, I don't like that matchup as well. Definitely downgrading Lamar this week against that tough D. Another guy I'm downgrading, like you said, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill. The Colts have a really good defense. Packers played well in the first half, but they shut them down in the second half. They didn't score at all. They only 3 points in the second half. So Colts defense is legit. They are for real. So I agree with the Henry pick. Even Tannehill too. I'm going to downgrade him definitely against the Colts defense. I think they're for real. 49ers, I'm downgrading some of those guys too against the Rams. Aaron Donald and the Rams, they have a really good defense as well. They're letting Tampa put up some points on them tonight, but I think overall the Rams still have a very solid defense. So I'm downgrading the running backs. I think Mostert should be back this week, so I'm definitely downgrading him and Nick Mullins this week against a tough Rams defense as well.
All right, man. Yeah, I mean, Nick Mullins, really hard to start. I disagree, though, with Gus Edwards. I just think he's going to get so much play over there. But you're right. It's the Steelers run. The Steelers D is totally legit and really hard. But I just think unless Justice Hill comes in and does something, which is a huge reach, I just think Gus Edwards is going to do something a little bit more than there. But I like the rest of those. Who is your biggest turkey?
Biggest turkey would be Gus Edwards against the Steelers D. I think he's
the
not convincing against them. I hate to say it, man, but yeah, I can't agree with you on that one. Steelers D has been shutting down running backs, and they're looking good, and they're playing at home too. So I don't like that matchup at all. He's my biggest turkey this week.
Is he getting 10 points?
He'll get 10 points, but he's not going to get much more than that.
All right. Well, that's not that bad of a turkey. He was getting 10 points, Dave.
10 points is very much in some fantasy leagues, though.
All right, man. Well, we need some gravy now that we talked about turkeys for our mashed potatoes and turkey legs. And the best gravy nasty sleeper that I can find is Wayne Gallman, running back for the Giants. I watched him last game when he played, I think it was the Eagles, and he did really, really well. And there's another game he did really well. He's moved up and he's taken over the spot. Deion Lewis is kind of getting pushed back a little bit. He's still catching passes on third downs, but Wayne Gallman has just been a breath of fresh air for this Giants team. And I think now that the Bengals lost Joe Burrow, I just wonder what kind of effort you're going to see from the Bengals this week. I think Wayne Gallman's going to get a ton of points, man. What are your thoughts, and who's your sleeper?
No, I like that pick, actually. I don't think Ryan Finley is going to do much. You saw when he came in this week, he was only 3 for 10. Last year, too, when he had to play, he started at quarterback. His best game was like 190 yards. So Ryan Finley is definitely not going to be your answer for fantasy teams. So he's definitely my last pickup this week if there's other quarterbacks that are out there. The guy I really like this week, I actually have two this week. I like Derek Carr. He's one of my sleepers of the week right now against the Falcons. And the other guy, my dynasty sleeper of the week to put a little gravy on it, is going to be Tua against the Jets. He's my sleeper of the week.
Tua Tagovailoa. Huh? Well, he's got a great matchup there against the Jets. You've seen what Herbert did to the Jets last week. I thought the Jets actually had a decent run defense last week. It's just Herbert was throwing dimes, throughout the air. So, yeah, we'll see what Tua does, and big game for him. He's got to step it up. I mean, he did get benched last week for Fitzmagic, and he was on my trending up as well. So I agree with you there, Dave. Any last thoughts for Fantasy Football Turkey Week?
No, enjoy the Thanksgiving Day games and enjoy your holiday, everybody.
Yep. That's right. Everybody enjoy Thanksgiving. We'll be back on Wednesday to break down a few sports bets for Thanksgiving as well as Thanksgiving weekend. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast. If you have any questions, please feel free to tweet us at the Oddsbreakers. Have a great week and go get some wins.